First off, Richard, I want to thank you for taking the time away from your family and your extremely demanding job to come on and talk about your passion for barbecue. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem.
And then obviously the newest or the latest news that I think everybody has seen, that Texas Monthly released their top 50, their best top 50 barbecue joints in Texas. And you're on that list, and I got to tell you, just you being in El Paso, I think I'm extremely proud. So I can only imagine how you feel. To me, it's like winning an Emmy. It's like the ultimate thing that you can possibly do. I mean, obviously, I think that there's going to be a lot more highs for you, and I hope that's true. But being on the Texas Monthly, I mean, it's number one. You're in Texas, so there's a barbecue joint on every corner.
Yeah.
And for you to be from El Paso, that's not known for barbecue, and land on the top 50 barbecue joints in Texas, that's a huge thing. So congratulations on that as well.
Thank you.
So is this something, I mean, is this your first time on that top 50?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was I guess we would have been eligible the last time around because we were already open. But then I thought, we're in El Paso. Who really cares about El Paso? I didn't think that. I didn't think we'd make the list, but I kind of thought that we could. And it's kind of one of those things. Of course, we frequent a lot of other barbecue places, especially the ones in the top 50, and they're very good. And I guess it comes down to a matter of preference. Once you do your craft and you do it well, and you do it as well as you can, then that's what I always tell the guys at work. We're not the best. We do the best that we can, and we do it the way we like it here. So it's up to other people to tell us whether they like it or not. We don't toot our own horn, and we got a really good crew. They work really hard, and so obviously it's because of them that we made the top 50.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And for you to congratulate your team, because I'm a firm believer that you're only as good as your team that you have working for you, and to acknowledge your team at Desert Oak Barbecue. And I've met a lot of them, and there's been a lot of turnover with this pandemic in a lot of businesses, and it's been tough for them to even hire people. But you have a lot of familiar faces. You don't turn over a lot of employees, and I think that's the key to a successful barbecue business as well, or any business period, is to have that consistent employees at your place. So, that's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, thanks.
Bauer's Barbecue. So Bauer's Barbecue, he's actually frequents a lot of barbecue joints throughout Texas. And not sure if you've been to El Paso yet, but Desert Oak Barbecue is definitely a place you want to visit, buddy. He does some really good videos, really good reviews. And I know that he likes sausage, and I guarantee you that the sausage at Desert Oak Barbecue is game changing. Okay. I'm telling you right now. So come out to El Paso and give it a try. So, I've got a bunch of questions for you, Richard. And, I want to talk about how you got into the business, but way before that you even thought about a barbecue business. When were you bit by that barbecue bug? How did it happen?
So I'll try to keep this story short, but I don't want to leave out any important information. So when I started dating Suzanne, I took her to my house, and I think I was making dinner, but she wanted to make steaks, and she asked me if I had a grill. I said, I mean, I have a grill, but I don't use it. It's just some grill my mom gave me. It's in the garage. And so I showed it to her, and it was a gas grill. And I didn't use it because I didn't like gas grills, so I didn't grill. And she laughed at me. She said, that is not a grill. She said, come on, let's go get in the car. And she took me to buy a Weber. And she said, first of all, if you're not using charcoal, you're not really cooking. You're not really grilling. So I said, okay, this kind of makes sense. So we got the Weber, and it was just a little tiny tailgate Weber, and we cooked some steaks on that. And I said, you know what? This is what steak used to taste like when my dad used to use charcoal when I was growing up. So then we moved to El Paso, her hometown, and I thought that there was going to be barbecue everywhere because we're in Texas, and there wasn't. So we went to Academy one day to buy patio furniture, and I saw this huge section full of smokers, and I just got hypnotized. And I said, "Hey, I'm going to be over here for a little while. I'll catch up with you." And then when she came back, I had them bringing a smoker from the back. She said, "What are you doing?" I said, "We're going to buy this." And she laughed at me again. She said, "You don't know how to use that." I said, "I know I don't, but I'm going to figure it out." And it was a little Oklahoma Joe, tiny little smoker, but it was a lot of fun. And I thought I started messing around with ribs and things like that and different woods. And then I tried a brisket, and I stopped barbecuing for about a year after I tried that brisket. It was that discouraging. And I always tell people that that is by far the worst brisket I've ever tasted. My first brisket. Um, Nobody's beat me on that yet. That's still the worst brisket I've ever had. So brisket is discouraging. It's just hard. You gotta figure it out. But once you do, then some of us tend to obsess with it, and you just keep trying to take it further and further. So I guess there's two types of people. There's the kind that like the challenge of the brisket and they pursue it until they figure it out, and then there's the ones that just throw in the towel forever.
Well, let me ask you this: what was wrong with the brisket? I mean, tell us. Did you burn it? Was it?
Be faster to tell you what wasn't wrong with it. Now, so I just didn't know how to use a smoker. I had no idea that. I didn't really use YouTube back then. I didn't know who to ask. Nobody could tell me anything. I think now it's a little easier to get information online on how to cook a brisket, but or maybe back then I just didn't know how to use a computer well enough. But it was tough. It smelled good. So at first it was kind of exciting, but then I started cutting into it, and it was really hard to cut through. And then once I actually cut through it, it was bleeding like a roast. So I spent all night cooking it, and it wasn't done. I stayed up all night to cook it, and it was just gross, chewy. It was nasty.
I think that's a common mistake, though, Richard. When people tackle a brisket, they think that it's like a steak. That steak you cooked on that grill. That probably took you 5 minutes, if that. And a lot of people go into briskets thinking, okay, well, it looks like a steak, just thicker, so I'm just going to cook it instead of 15 minutes or whatever. I'm going to try 4 hours or whatever. And that's, that's not good. So you mentioned something that interests me is that, your wife, Suzanne, really said that's not a grill, number one. And she challenged you and said, you don't know how to barbecue or whatever. So what got her into barbecue?
So for her, it wasn't really barbecue. It was just grilling.
Okay.
So steak, and it's not like it was a hobby to her. She knows how to cook, and whether it's inside or outside, that woman can cook.
Nice.
As far as barbecue, that was not something like low and slow, indirect. That's not something she did. That's something I wanted to do because I don't want to say grilling got boring, but I wanted to do something that was, I guess I wanted more of a challenge. I want to do something harder. And yeah, that's just how I got into it. I wanted to eat brisket, and I wanted to make it myself.
Right.
And that's pretty much how it started. And
Very
I didn't
nice.
cook it too fast. I cooked it. I think I exaggerated the low and slow aspect of barbecue. I kept hearing the term low and slow, so I cooked it really, really low. It was almost like a cold smoke for a really long time, and it just didn't break down any connective tissue, didn't really render any fat, didn't even get a nice bark. It looked like a really nice roast is basically what it was, and that's not the kind of cut you cook like a roast. So I mean, I guess
Sure.
you kind of could, but not no, not quite like that.
Yeah. All right. Mr. David Fogg, a big follower of the channel, says the very first brisket is always the worst. And that's very true, David. I think that a lot of people have similar stories to what Rich had. I didn't tackle, for me, I never tackled a brisket until I kind of knew what I was doing. I mean, I ruined a lot of pork shoulders before I even attempted because it's it can be scary for a lot of people. Never cooking that. Uh, but they're not as pricey as they are today. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of comments in there saying, that they would have been terrible too. Luckily, they found channel, and I don't think YouTube. So when was this that you started that, like your first brisket? How long ago was that?
So this would have been, it was either 2009 or 2010.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think YouTube was as big as it is today. Even in 2009, believe it or not, I don't think it was as popular and as handy as it is today. So when did you like, not, I don't want to say perfect a brisket, because I think that every day, I think that we're all trying to perfect our briskets, but when did you say, okay, man, I've got something here. I finally cooked my first good brisket. How far after that ruined brisket?
So, okay, so I took an entire year off because I was that discouraged by it. And then, I mean, I still cooked ribs and things like that, but not brisket. It was expensive, and it was time consuming, and it was just a nightmare. So about a year after that, I started trying it again, but I would smoke it for a couple hours, and then I would put it in the oven and go to bed. And it was pretty good. It wasn't bad, but after a while, I needed something more. So I started just Googling stuff, and I started reading a lot of Texas Monthly articles about the famous barbecue joints in Central Texas. Like Louis Miller, especially, was one of the ones that I really wanted to visit. And so I thought, I can do this. And then I still wasn't quite convinced, though. I thought I probably should try it, but then I saw. I think one day we were trying to watch something on Netflix, and we had gotten signed off, and I couldn't remember which email address we used. So I said, hell, I'll just look up some barbecue stuff on YouTube. So we found an Aaron Franklin video. Had no idea who this guy was. Said, well, and he's talking about his barbecue restaurant. I said, this guy is a regular guy, and he's doing this for a living. And then I started really thinking about it. What if I could do this for a living? Now, keep in mind, I still had not cooked a decent brisket. Well, I mean, not all the way in the smoker anyway. So I noticed that he was doing something that Bobby Miller of Louis Miller Barbecue had been written about doing. That was wrapping the brisket in butcher paper, in that peach paper. So obviously I couldn't get peach paper, not out here at the time. So I just found a place that sold me some brown butcher paper, and I started wrapping the briskets in brown butcher paper, and started cooking them all night outside. I'm sorry, not all night. I had shifted to the morning, so it was an early morning cook. I would put the brisket on at 5 a.m., prep it the night before, get the fire ready, or the wood ready, start at 5 a.m., and then by 5 p.m. we were eating dinner.
Oh, wow.
So that's when I started doing it, and then I started. First of all, I stopped reading a lot of barbecue forums, because I realized after many failed attempts that these are just everybody's opinion posted online, and it seems like it's factual, but it's still somebody else's opinion. So I started applying common sense instead. Just cook it till it's done, and it's probably going to be pretty good. That was it.
Very nice. So at what point? I mean, I know that you referred to Aaron Franklin, watching his stuff, and you're like, hey, this guy's like a regular guy, and he's got a business. So when did you say, okay, well, I'm going to try to get into this barbecue business? When was that?
So we would have cookouts and get-togethers at our house quite often. And then, the first few briskets I did just for the direct family, and then we would maybe invite a few people over. But then we started having big cookouts. And when I was happy with the product, and I saw that people really enjoyed it, I thought, what if I could do this? And then, Suzanne saw how passionate I was about it, and it got to where I was thinking about that more than I was thinking about work. So while at work, I was thinking about, what should I cook next? What reason do we have to have a get together and call people over? Because we couldn't eat all that brisket. It's way too much beef. It was basically feedback from the people we were feeding. then we did a small well, it wasn't a small catering job. It was a pretty big catering job, especially for people who didn't know what they were doing. It was for a church, and it was I think it was like 120 people or something like that.
Wow.
And they really loved it. So we thought, yeah, I think we can do this. So we started, obviously not as a restaurant. We started as a food truck because that was more manageable, and it's a much lower risk. It's easy to walk away from a food truck. You've got no lease commitment, and it's not as much of an upfront investment. So I still recommend to the guys that want to do this, do it as a food truck first. You're not going to ruin your life if you fail as a food truck. The
Hmm.
restaurant, it's going to be a little harder to get back up, but you can still do it. But I recommend the food truck route first.
It is, and obviously when you jump right into a restaurant, I mean, the thing that I think could make or break somebody is that you've got a lease, and usually it's a long-term lease,
Yeah,
um, so you're responsible for that lease, regardless if you go belly up or not.
yeah,
And that's a huge deal. And one of the things, I believe it was your daughter that posted some pictures on your Instagram page. Um, I had never seen your food truck. I see your food truck now, your old food truck that you're
yeah,
using kind of for wood storage.
yeah,
Um, and I saw a picture of it. I think that's the first time I've ever seen your food truck, um, when it was in operation, and it was extremely simple.
hmm,
You had a counter by the window, and it looks like you had maybe a prep table behind you, and you had a fridge in there or a soda machine. I don't forget what that was. But man, I was looking at that, Richard. I think it was Monday or Tuesday, and I was like, "Holy cow, man! You talk about a humble beginning, and not going all in and spending all this money on the best stuff that money could buy." I mean, you started really basic. I mean, you're obviously the majority of the work was going to be done on the smoker,
yeah.
but that's the first time. I mean, not even the your fresh water tank was covered. It was just under like a cutting table, and I was like, "Holy cow, this is extremely very basic." But you became very successful. So, how long did you do the food truck deal?
We did the food truck for 2 years, and it was very basic. The water tanks were directly under the 3 compartment sink, and all we had inside basically was a warmer and a refrigerator. Um, yeah, and just a serving table. We did all the cooking outside. So the smoker cooked the meat, and the top of the firebox was basically a stove. That's where you cooked the beans and the rice,
Wow.
and that was it.
That is an amazing story to, because fireboxes, they do get extremely hot, and taking advantage of all the tools that were right there in front of you. I mean, you didn't even have a stove in your food truck. Using the heat that's coming out of that firebox to cook your beans and your rice. I mean, that's an amazing story.
Well, that firebox wasn't insulated, which was wasteful, but at least I got to cook stuff on it.
Yeah.
You can't do it. We can't do it with the smokers we have now.
So 2 years. So what did you at any point? I mean, because I can just picture. So you used to be outside of a what is it, boot store?
Yeah, Cowtown Boots. It's a
Cowtown
Western
Boots.
wear store. So it's a boot store on one side, and the factory, because they manufacture boots. The factory's on the other end.
Okay. So obviously, I mean, a lot of cowboys like barbecue, right? So,
Yeah.
was there ever a time, Richard, where you and Suzanne said, "Man, this is tough." I'm looking at, not every day is the sun shining and the birds are chirping. I think that there's, El Paso. I mean, the weather can go from extremely windy to hot to rain, in just a matter of hours. So, was there ever a time where you said, "Man, this maybe we should just hang it up, because this isn't working," or were you consistently busy, like just lines all the time?
No, I wish we were consistently busy. We were pretty busy most of the time, but we had some slow weeks, and we had some days where I thought, man, is anybody going to show up today? And then people would show up. Um, um, Rainy days, people would still show up. We feel very blessed that people kept coming, but there were definitely days when it just didn't seem like it was going to work. That didn't mean that we thought we should throw in the towel then. Um, it just we just persevered, and you know, and the days kept getting better and better. Eventually, we got busier and busier. We had to have more help. Our daughter Alyssa actually helped us out a lot on the weekends, and whenever she wasn't working, she actually, I think she even left her job to help us out more toward the end. And then my brother-in-law Caleb came, and he started helping me. Suzanne had to go back to work so that she could support us because I wasn't making any money. The business was paying for itself. Fortunately, we didn't have bills like restaurant bills. We just had to make sure we had enough money to buy more product for the following week. So that was really the extent of our expenses. So it was really manageable. It was easy to you know, to sail through those slow days because we didn't have to pay rent. So the Calcaterra family of Cowtown Boots, they were gracious enough to let us just freeload there. And if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have been able to do it because there's no way we could afford rent operating the way that we were.
That's awesome, man. To have you know, people come into your life that way, and really it's a life changer for you because you know, for 2 years you know, you sat on their property and sold barbecue, and they helped you, and
Yeah,
you know, that's a big deal.
I practically lived there because I was that food truck was also my bedroom.
Oh,
I would take 1 hour naps throughout the night so I could manage fire, put the other meats on, and do all that. And I just had to be there. And one time the owner brought me mail. And I said, he goes, "Yeah, this is yours." I said, "I'm getting mail here." I started getting, and yeah, for some reason, some of my mail just started going there. And I was embarrassed because I was already, you know, taking up space and not paying them, and now they're having to sift through their mail and give me mine, and that was kind of embarrassing. But
wow.
anyway, we appreciate what they did for us for sure.
So so after your
I lost you, Joe. I can't hear you.
did I lose you?
Oh, there we are.
Hang on.
You're back.
Uh-oh.
Can you hear me? I hear something.
Uh-oh. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know what happened though. This mic just kind of went off. So I wanted to talk about what your menu consisted of when you had your food truck. I mean, obviously right now you have a restaurant, you have multiple items on your menu, but what were you cooking and selling back then?
So we had brisket and ribs. That was the meats, just brisket, and we were doing St. Louis ribs. And then the sides were, we always had the green chili cheese rice. We had the beans, coleslaw, and I think we probably had potato salad already, and then banana pudding that Suzanne made. Um, that was it. That's how we started. So when Daniel Vaughn from Texas Monthly first came out, that was the entire menu, and it fit on a little chalkboard, and that was it. It was easy to make your selections.
So
Oh,
Daniel Vaughn,
we had the stuffed potato too.
okay. So Daniel Vaughn had already visited your food truck once before?
So we opened in July of 2015, and I think that November he came to the food truck.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So that was, looking back, it was pretty quick. Back then, I thought he took forever. I thought
Right.
he should have been there when we opened, and fortunately he didn't because we had to figure out what we were doing first. But yeah,
Very nice.
it's been that long.
So tell me about that green chili cheese rice, correct?
Yes,
So whose recipe is that?
that's Suzanne's, and
Wow.
she invented that recipe for the food truck.
Wow.
We went to Pody's Barbecue in Pecos.
Hmm.
That was our first stop on our barbecue crawl to Central Texas. So we went to Pody's because I had read about him in Texas Monthly, and we got to meet him and his wife, and it was either his mom or mother-in-law who were at the restaurant, and he had this green chili pozole and green chili and cheese pozole, and we thought, man, this is amazing. It was so good, and it gave a southwestern touch to that Texas barbecue. And we thought, man, we got to do something like this, but we can't copy him. And he's a nice enough guy. He probably would have let us copy it, but we
Hmm.
didn't want to do that. So Suzanne said, I'm going to make green chili cheese rice. And I said, no, you're not. We're not going to serve rice at a barbecue food truck. And then she made it. I thought, well, this is pretty good. So we ended up making that one of the sides, and it's still one of our top sellers today.
Wow. So I'm with you. I really don't. I didn't think when I first had it, I was like, what is rice doing in a barbecue joint? But
Yeah,
then I had it and I had to pause for a minute and really like savor the flavor of it. And it's insane delicious. And it pairs extremely well with, with the barbecue.
yeah,
Because you think of rice and it's plain or whatever, but this one is so full of flavor, buttery and the cheesy and the green chili. I think is a nice touch because we're so close to New Mexico, in
yeah.
Hatch, New Mexico. I mean, the chili capital of the world, and you've incorporated that into your menu. So, what about the desserts that you have, like the key lime pie? I've never had your desserts. I'm not a big dessert guy,
Mhm.
um, but so your desserts, is that something that Suzanne came up with as well?
Yeah, and I'm not a big dessert guy either, and neither is Suzanne. So when I thought, we have to have banana pudding and peach cobbler, but we couldn't make peach cobbler because we didn't have a way to cook cobbler. So she came up with something that she could make with it that didn't require an oven, and that was banana pudding, which is pretty barbecuey. And we don't like it very sweet, so it's not super sweet. We make vanilla pudding, and then we whip cream and fold it in, and then the banana flavor comes from banana slices.
Ooh,
And of course the vanilla wafers, and we haven't really changed that since we started. We talked about maybe changing the packaging now that we're getting bigger, and we may have to move away from the individual portions, but the ingredients are the same, and the same with the key lime pudding. That's just something she came up with that also didn't require an oven, which is why we have pudding style desserts, is because we started without ovens. Eventually we plan to bake stuff, but right now we just don't.
right. That's awesome. So you even have plans to expand I mean, dessert options, but what about your barbecue options? I mean, this is just me on the outside looking in. I think that your proteins are on point. Like your ribs, and I don't know if it's just me, but I think that your ribs have improved to the point where I was like, man, what did you do to this rib? I don't know if you added or changed the seasoning or maybe a glaze, but your ribs are fantastic. I fell in love with your brisket. Your brisket, no doubt, is good. And I think that's what makes a barbecue restaurant. But now I'm big into sausage now. So to me, if your sausage game is good, then the rest of it's good. For example, Bauer's Barbecue, I know that he loves turkey. And I think turkey is his best, although he has said that he absolutely loves sausage as well. But I think that your proteins are on point. Are there any plans to add other maybe proteins, or change up your offerings on your menu? Like maybe I know that you have the El Paso stuffed potato, but is there
Yeah.
something else that you're maybe looking at adding?
Yes. So our son Steven is a partner in the business now, and he and I are always talking. And then we went ahead and hired a chef who runs our kitchen now. And we like to tell people we own a chef just because we hired him. So, but he's ours.
You're right.
And Wade is his name, and he's really creative too. So we kind of are always like pushing each other to, or I guess encouraging each other to push the limits. And Steven is our numbers guy, and he's the one who keeps us on track and keeps us profitable. So however crazy we get with our ideas, we got to run it through Steven to see if it's actually going to work and make money. But we're constantly talking about adding proteins. We're going to do it. We're going to do it in a way that's manageable. And whenever we add something to the menu, we have to make sure that it's really good. At least by our standards, it's got to be really good. Okay. So we're not just going to add proteins just to expand the menu. We don't really need to expand the menu. It's pretty big, and but we do want to get. I don't know if our customers would get bored, but we get bored. And yeah, we want to have more stuff.
Very nice. We got Chud's Barbecue. He was actually a pitmaster at Leroy and Lewis. Congratulating you. So good to see you, Bradley, in the chat. So one thing I think I skipped earlier was, what was your 9-to-5 job before getting into your, did you have a 9-to-5 when you had your food truck? And obviously you don't have a 9-to-5. Well, you have a more than a 9-to-5 job now, but did you have a 9-to-5 job prior to your food truck?
Yes. When we opened in July of 2015, I was still working full time all the way until the end of December that year. So I resigned. We opened in July. I turned in my letter of resignation in September, and I gave them until the end of the year to find a replacement. And so I was still working full time until December, and then it was just barbecue after that. I'm sorry. What? I'm rambling now. What did you ask me?
Your 9-to-5 job.
My job. Yeah. So I was a dental supply salesman.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Completely unrelated, but I found myself talking barbecue with my customers more than dental supplies.
Well, that never happens with me, just so you know.
my very first dental client is he was my best dental client, and now he's one of our best barbecue customers.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, so he's also my dentist, but he's been with us since the beginning.
Is his first name Wes by any chance?
Oh, West Bransford.
Yeah.
No, he was one of my clients, but no, that wasn't him, and he's been to the restaurant.
Okay.
No, it's actually Andrew Dyer.
Okay. How do you know Wes? By just kind of curiosity, you guessed
By
that name immediately.
Being in dental and trying to sell him stuff. That's how I know Wes.
Man, Richard. So just in case you guys didn't know in the chat, so Richard moved into a neighborhood really close to my house, and we're almost neighbors. But so just so you know, Richard, Wes lived right across the street from me.
Oh, really?
Yes. And we had plenty of drunken nights before. And had you been a salesman and we would have met a few years back, I think you would have had all of his business.
Yeah, that's good. Well, next time.
Next time. That's funny. That is funny. So, did you think that, were you scared at all to leave your 9-to-5? Because your 9-to-5 really is what's paying the bills, and you're jumping into something that I think that you were fairly new at, aside from your, maybe that catering gig that you had, and you started to perfect your barbecue a little bit more. Was it scary jumping in right into a barbecue food truck and then ultimately your business?
So I think I'm supposed to say yes, but I was actually excited more than I was scared. Okay. I was a straight commission salesman, so that job was risky. You eat what you kill in that type of pay system, and if you're not selling, you're not getting paid. So, I guess it was scary, but I was really excited about doing this barbecue thing, and I really thought that I could do it. So I always tell people that want to get into it, you've got to be a little bit stupid to get into this line of work. So as long as you have that, then you're good to go. You're going to make it.
That's awesome. So one kind of off the wall question: was there ever a time when you had your food truck, or maybe now that you've got your restaurant, where I think you open at 11 o'clock, correct now?
Yeah.
But was there ever a time where your briskets weren't ready, your food wasn't ready. 11 o'clock is like coming really fast, and you're not ready to open because maybe your proteins weren't ready, maybe your sides weren't ready, and you just felt like overwhelmed and said, "Man, I'm just going to open anyway." Have you ever had that moment?
No. So, well, I mean, sort of. At the food truck, not really. There was one time when I had to keep the ribs at my. I had like a restaurant refrigerator in my garage because I didn't have room to store all the meats in the food truck. But I could grab those in the morning and then head over. This was when I had somebody cooking until a certain hour. I don't remember what the schedule was, and then I would go in really early, put the ribs on, and do all that stuff. And I forgot the ribs, so I actually went back home and got them and screwed up other things that were cooking because I wasn't there to watch it. I was able to salvage everything but the ribs. I still opened on time, and the ribs were horrible. And I started selling them, and then I thought, man, they just don't look good. And I went and talked to one of my regulars, and I said, he was eating ribs, and I said, hey, sorry about the ribs. This is what happened. And then he's listening. He goes, mm-hmm. And he goes, so why'd you sell them? I said, I don't know. I don't know why I sold them. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So I made it up to him, and he's still a customer today.
That's
But I learned my
awesome.
lesson then. If it's not ready, don't sell it. It's what was I thinking? I don't know. But at the restaurant, it's happened a few times where we have had issues with weather.
Hmm.
And now the briskets aren't ready, or there's so many variables, so many things that can go wrong during such a long cook. And what we end up doing is just you find there's always one brisket that's going to be done before the others. Start with that one, and then you got to keep managing fire, running back and forth, and things still keep coming off. And so far it's worked out, but we don't have too many of those accidents anymore.
Yeah, you got
So
a few years under your belt now. So, obviously there's 50 top barbecue joints in Texas that Texas Monthly picked, and that's a big deal. So I'm sure you've eaten at some of the top 50.
mhm.
Um, what are some of your favorites? I don't want to ask you which one your favorite is because you have friends, right?
Yeah.
But what are some of your favorites that are in the top 50 in 2021?
So there's a lot, but Suzanne argues with me about this one. But my favorite all around barbecue joint is Louis Miller in Taylor, Texas, and here's why. Um, you walk in the first time you went in there, it was like it was stepping into another dimension.
Mm.
They have this flimsy little screen door that's just on a regular spring, and it slams shut behind you. But as soon as you walk in, the waft of smoke just hits you, and it just overwhelms you to the point where it's actually uncomfortable. But it's so amazing to walk into something like that. You couldn't build a barbecue restaurant like that nowadays. So there would be way too many code violations, but they're grandfathered in, so they're in. They can stay like that. And I'm sure you've been there, and they've got this cork board full of business cards from visitors, and they're all the same color, brown, because they're covered in soot. There's no air conditioning. It's hot. It's smoky. We were sitting down eating, and after a while, Suzanne said, "Rich, we got to go. I can't finish this. Like my makeup is running down my face. I can't keep my eyes open. I'm coughing." I said, "Okay, that's fine. I get it." And I was in la la land while we were eating. I was like,
Yeah,
man, I love
sure.
this. But so I think I would always take somebody to Louis Miller to get the real, true experience.
Mm. Yeah, I've never been there, but I've heard a lot about it. That's interesting. So, my I did a little tour of Texas, and I went to Evie Mae's. Actually, I did your place first, then I went to Evie Mae's and just went all the way to Valentina's and came back towards San Antonio.
Mm.
So I ended up eating at a few I haven't eaten at a ton of barbecue spots in Texas, but my favorite is Valentina's, and I think when you go to Austin, Texas, you're looking for that central style barbecue, but when you go to Valentina's, you get something totally different. He's cooking with mesquite, and he adds a lot of his Hispanic heritage into his food, and his menu options are pretty crazy. Franklin was good. Evie Mae's was fantastic. Your place is fantastic. But if somebody were to ask me or point a gun to my head, for me, it's Valentina's because of that mix. But to me, I mean, how do you feel about the top 50, Rich? I mean, it's like, to me, it's like, if you have two kids, a boy and a girl, which one do you love the most?
Mhm.
You love them both, but how do you? To me, it's okay. The top five are the top five, right? But
Yeah.
after that, I mean, how do you say, okay, well, this one is six? I mean, I think it's a difficult job. How do you feel about that?
Uh, I have no idea how they do it. So, and I love Evie Mays and Valentina's, by the way. And basing it solely on food, I would probably have different favorites, but in the big picture overall, still Louis Miller wins every day. But
Wow.
so those guys that do the scouting, and then Daniel Vaughn and Pat Sharp, they have a really tough job because they've got to take, I think it was over 400 barbecue joints that they visited in the state, and they got to narrow it down to 50. How do you do that? And then you have to, if you want to give some of the new guys a chance, you got to take some of these old people off that didn't get worse. They're good. They're still really good and they're solid, but it. I mean, you can only put 50 in, so I don't know how they do it. I couldn't do it. And like out of all of them. I mean, there's several obviously that I haven't been to, but the ones that I've been to, I thought, well, yeah, they should definitely be on the list. But then why aren't these guys on the list anymore? And then maybe because we got on the list now and we had to take their spot. So there's some guilt there, but there are also those people that didn't make the list that were on the previous one. They're still just as good, and there are also others who didn't make it that probably should be on there too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I just think there's so many people doing it right, and it makes it really tough for the people that are scouting these places and reviewing them and ranking them.
Mm.
Yeah,
So
don't envy them.
do they give you a heads up that, hey, Rich and Suzanne, we're coming to visit your place, or do they just walk in?
No. Oh yeah. So the scouters, they walk in, and they walked in. I think it was late spring, and I wasn't there. And Steven wasn't there either. James, our pit crew manager, was there, and he said, "Hey, there's some people from Texas Monthly here." I said, I mean, they might be doing the top 50, and I can't remember what year it's supposed to be." And he said, "No, I don't think it's them. They're doing some local write up." I said, "Okay, whatever." But then months later, when they said, well, Wyatt McSpadden called and said Texas Monthly was sending him out to take pictures, and they don't send Wyatt McSpadden to take pictures for no story. So I thought, oh crap, is this going to be the top 50? Because when they send him out, you're pretty much going to be on there. But anyway, they still don't tell you. He takes hundreds of pictures and then he leaves, and then you pretty much wait to see if you're going to be on the article. Well,
Mm-hmm.
they do have fact checkers calling, and again, they don't tell you what it's for, but they said it's some article, and then you kind of just have to assume. But then, what if you assume wrong? So you don't want to set yourself up for failure either.
So, I mean, how do you get to the point, Rich, where, I mean, obviously you're involved in your business, and how do you walk away and hope that your team is doing everything right? And it's kind of like, at my job, we're always doing inventory, and people have to prep, for inventory. And my philosophy is, well, if you always do your inventory, you shouldn't have to prep for inventory. Like, you should be ready all the time. So how do you get to that point where everything is just running like a well-oiled machine, and you say, okay, because it's got to be extremely difficult, number one, for you to be the owner, pitmaster of a really successful barbecue business, and walk away and take a step back and say, okay, I'm going to give them a little bit of space and see how they do without me. But how do you get them all to work like that, and to feel comfortable that, hey, Daniel Vaughn might walk in when I'm not here, but they're going to be okay?
You have to trust. You have to, first of all, accept that they're not going to do everything right. There are things that are just not going to be perfect, but you can't obsess over every little thing. I used to obsess over every little thing, and it was driving me crazy. I was working pretty close to 100 hours a week,
Wow.
and I was in bad health, and I was miserable. I was grumpy all the time, and it was killing me. So I had to start taking time off. And then, fortunately, when our son Steven joined the team, he started taking on a lot of responsibility.
Mm.
So he and I kind of tag team it now, and we're now to the point he's really good at managing people and putting in systems that kind of make it run like a well-oiled machine. And even though it looks that it is running like a well-oiled machine to the customers, it's not always the case in the back of the house. We are running around trying to pull everything together, trying to keep from sinking, but at the same time, our team, they're solid. We try to treat them well, and we treat everybody with respect. We know that they don't have to work for us, but we want to get to a point where they want to work for us, and
Mm-hmm.
and they're a part of something that's big, and they're proud to say they work at Desert Oak. So as long as you've got those people in place, you're gonna be fine.
Very
Again, not
nice.
everything's gonna be perfect, but it's gonna be good.
One of the nice things that I thought was really interesting is when I visited you, man, I think it was maybe a month ago, and we were talking in the back of your restaurant, and you had made some kind of change to your sausage,
Mhm.
and you sliced it up, and you brought me a sample, and you said, "What do you think?" And you and Steven were talking about it, and you were saying, you were criticizing it and saying, well, maybe if we do this or whatever. So are you constantly trying to, I mean, I think that we're all constantly trying to get better at everything that we do, but are you always trying to come up with something better, or make what is already, because I think your sausage is fantastic,
Mhm.
really nice and plump, extremely juicy, and so full of flavor. I wouldn't change it for the world, but there you are trying to make it just a little bit better. Is that something that you do on a normal basis?
So we're all pretty picky there, and
Hmm.
so yes, there's always room for improvement. Once you think you've got something down and you're doing it right, and then you find, you know what, it could be a little bit better if we did this. Let's try that. But with the sausage, it's also it's kind of it we had to increase production like drastically. So when we used to make sausage strictly out of brisket and rib trim, suddenly we're finding ourselves with not enough beef or not enough pork, and we still have to make these numbers because we can't just keep selling out all the time. It's okay at first, but now I think we've got to deliver. People are lining up, and we got to have this food.
Hmm.
So we were experimenting with different cuts of pork, and it just wasn't the same. It was good, I guess, but it's not where we wanted to go with it. So
Right.
we had to. We're still working on that, trying to get creative because we don't want to run out, but we're not going to sacrifice quality. So and that's never a fair trade. You don't sacrifice quality for quantity. Nobody wants to buy a ton of garbage. They want to
Hmm.
buy high quality product. So sometimes it's better to not have quite enough, but we're on a quest to have enough and have it good. So.
Very nice. So I believe it was last year, you got a visit from Guy Fieri, and to me that was pretty exciting. I remember watching the episode as soon as it came out, and I love that show from years back, and it was pretty exciting to see him at your restaurant. So how was that experience, and do they call you and tell you that they're coming? And did you? I know that he kind of featured your El Paso baked potato.
Mhm.
Um, what did that do for your business, and did they give you a heads up that, hey, we're coming?
Sort of. So the film company calls you. They couldn't get a hold of me because at that time the restaurant only had a cell phone, and I would shut it off. It was only on during business hours.
Hmm.
So they reached out to me through Facebook, and I called them and I said, "Who did you say you are?" And they said, "Oh, well, we do TV shows for the Food Network, like Diners, Drive-ins, and Dives." And I'm like, "Yeah." I said, I never heard of it because I don't really watch TV. So they said, "Well, it's the biggest show on the Food Network." I said, "Okay, so what do you want to do?" And they said, "Well, we're considering doing an episode at your restaurant." And I said, "Oh yeah, that's fine." And then they said, "So we need your top recipes. We need your top menu items, and we need the detailed recipes." I said, "I'm not giving you the recipes. Have a nice day." And I hung up. And then a friend of mine from another restaurant called me, and he said, "Hey, did they call you?" I said, "Yeah." So what is this thing really? He goes, "It's real. They really want to film your restaurant." I said, "Oh man!" So I told Suzanne. I said, "Suzanne, these people are asking for the recipes," and then so she asked some of her friends, and she said, "Oh my God, tell them to give them the recipes." So they called me back and they said that they got permission for me to talk directly to their supervisor or director or something. I said, "No, there's no need. I'll give you the recipes." And so we gave them the recipes just to see if we would, because they have to vet your menu to see if it's episode worthy. And we didn't know still if we were going to get on the show. But then they called us. Well, they called me on my cell phone and said, "You know what? You've been selected. We're coming to your restaurant, and you have 1 week to get this stuff in order." So they gave us 1 week's notice, basically. And they came, did their thing, and it was that was scary. I actually reached out to Daniel Vaughn and asked him if he knew of anybody who had done this yet. And he said yes. So he gave me Miguel's number from Valentina's, and so I talked to him. He said, "Yeah, here's what you should expect," and he basically gave me the spiel, and I said, "Okay, I think we can do this." And so everything happened exactly as Miguel said it would happen, and they came. They filmed for 2 days. They don't let any customers in your door unless they're on the list that you provided to them. So you have to invite the customers. They want regular customers to go because they want people who know the menu, not just like some first timer, because that's not useful to the episode. So everybody that comes in is somebody who has who has been there several times and they're regulars and they know what they're talking about. And then it happened pretty much like they said they would. Like they said it would. We would get an initial spike in local business, and we did. We got a lot of new customers from El Paso that didn't know we existed. And then they said a year later you'll get the travelers. The problem was a year later was in the middle of a COVID shutdown. So we didn't get the travelers until after they lifted the travel restrictions, and now we're still getting those travelers, which is really good, and we're happy that that happened that way.
That's awesome.
So
We got Richard saying that he loves Triple D, and when Rich said no, that probably freaked them out. Like we were trying to sell you an extended warranty for your vehicle or something.
Yeah,
So,
I wasn't biting.
that's funny. So we had a really good question here that I didn't think about. 804 Barbecue Junkie asked, "How did you get the name Desert Oak Barbecue?"
Okay, so we obviously are in El Paso where we don't have trees. I mean, we have some trees, but we've got some mesquite shrubs, and then we got pecan orchards. So that's typically what people cook with out here is mesquite and pecan, which is typical of barbecue. Wherever you are, the regional wood is what you use for your type of barbecue. That's why Central Texas typically uses post oak or live oak, because that's what grows in Central Texas. We're not in Central Texas, but I loved cooking with oak long before I knew that it was a Central Texas wood. So I decided just to go with that name. So desert oak. We're in the desert. I had to specify that we're using oak. I kind of just wanted to throw it in the name. Ran it by the family, Suzanne, Alyssa, Steven, and everybody else, and everybody said, "Yeah, you know what? That's pretty cool. Let's do desert oak."
Very nice. And you know what surprises me is that, like, you're in a, just so you guys that haven't been to Desert Oak Barbecue, he's in a shopping center. Okay, so totally not traditional type of barbecue business. His business does not say Desert Oak Barbecue up front. It's like a secret barbecue society, like that goes there, because you know that it's Desert Oak just because either you've eaten there or somebody told you or somebody invited you to lunch or whatever, but it just says barbecue out front. And I find that really interesting. And you have a line out the door at times. So another question I had for you is, did you have a kind of a mentor that has helped you, early on, and that maybe you reached out, maybe your first year, your first 3, 4, 5 months, that has kind of helped you along the way? And who is
So
that person?
So I am self-taught, but shortly after we opened the food truck, I started getting messages on Instagram from John Lewis, and we messaged you back and forth. Eventually, we exchanged numbers and started talking, and I found out he's from El Paso, and he started doing barbecue when he moved to Austin. Well, he kind of always cooked with fire, and he's kind of one of those guys that just is kind of a natural. And then he came to visit, and I was always really inspired by his barbecue and by the smokers that he and his dad were building. We so anyway, we ended up becoming friends, and he came to the food truck, and I showed him what I was doing with the sausage. I was making sausage, but I wasn't quite happy with it. He says, "Oh, well, let me tell you what you got to do different." And he just gave me some pointers, and worked with me for a couple of days. And then my brother-in-law Caleb was working with me at the time, and we thought, "Man, who is this guy? How does he know all this stuff?" And we just tried. We tried his technique, and we thought, "Holy cow! That's all we had to do is just do that." And now our sausage is like this. So then I started, bugging him about other things, like, what about brisket, and what about this, that, and the other. And he was just like this encyclopedia of barbecue information. And he has been really helpful. And actually, we took a family trip out to Charleston recently. I took Suzanne and Marcello, and then Stephen came with us, and we spent a week with John at his restaurant in Charleston, Lewis Barbecue. We got to work the pit room, and we got to make sausage and do all kinds of stuff. And also, he let us shadow his general manager, and his chef de cuisine, and they showed us everything and how they run the kitchen, how they do their books, all kinds of stuff. So this is this barbecue community is very tight, and I think people think that everybody has all these secrets, but these guys are just willing to share what they do, and what you do with it is up to you. Are you willing to put in the work and actually make it happen, or do you just want to know if there was some kind of a magic wand you could wave over your stuff? So so John Lewis has probably been the most influential person in the way we do things at Desert Oak.
Very nice. So Rich, we've talked about a lot of things, your beginnings and your food truck, and where you're at now, and some of the successes that you've had. And I think having Guy Fieri come on, and like you said, it was bad timing in a way because of Corona, and you had to make some adjustments to your restaurant and stuff. But I think that you've been blessed, and you're running a successful and a really good barbecue business. So what is the future of Desert Oak? I mean, what are your plans? I know that when I first ate at your barbecue restaurant, you had 1,000 gallon pit, and I was there again about a month ago, and now I see another one back there. And as I drove by your house, you have another one sitting in your driveway. What's going on?
that one's in queue for the expansion. So we actually have 4 now. 2 of them are offsite, and they're we're getting ready for the expansion. We are we want to do a big location where we can cook everything and have the diners go there, and then we also distribute to some smaller locations. That's what we're gearing up for. We don't know exactly how it's going to work out yet. I'd like to say that we're going to be at this location and it's going to be huge and beautiful, and this is how it's going to happen, but we don't know yet. Construction's expensive right now. Bids are coming in really high. We're doing the best we can. We are at a minimum going to add a small location, but what we're working toward is having a big location that works also as our commissary kitchen to supply other locations. So we have big plans. We don't know exactly how they're going to unfold yet.
Very nice. So you own a barbecue business, and one thing I always wondered is, do some of these pit masters and barbecue joint owners, do they barbecue on the weekends, or do you get home and you're like, I am done with barbecue? Is that something you're still cooking on the weekends, maybe barbecue, or are you cooking something else?
So I get tired, but I don't get tired of barbecuing. I do cook. So unfortunately, the time is mainly the issue. it's hard to make time for that, because even if you get time off, you've got so many things that you got to catch up on, and it's just not like it used to be, where I could plan my weekend to cook a brisket and whatnot, and I don't have anything else going on. So we grill steaks, we grill stuff frequently. I still have my backyard smoker, and I haven't cooked a brisket at home in a long time, but I still cook ribs, and I do things like that. And I like to cold smoke my steaks before I grill them now.
Mm.
So I do some smoking. Actually, now you got me thinking I should cook a brisket at home soon. I might plan that soon. I really missed that.
So what are you cooking on at home?
So actually, I have it's a Lifetime pit, and it's built in Texas. I bought it secondhand from some guy in the Upper Valley years ago,
Mm.
and that's actually, so I learned how to cook it on Oklahoma Joe, but I perfected what I do and what we do at the restaurant now on this smoker here. Um, it could have been built a little bit better, I think, but it does the job. So
Never heard of that brand, but I'm sure if you have it as a backyard pit, it's got to be pretty decent.
it's not bad. Yeah.
So, all right. So, a couple of fun questions. Are you a fat cap up or fat cap down guy?
Oh, definitely fat cap up.
Fat cap up. Okay, there you guys go. That's like the world's biggest argument that will never ever get settled.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, obviously you're cooking on those big offsets, and the smoke is coming and the heat is coming from the top, and you want to protect the precious meat. So have
Yeah.
that little buffer of fat there. I have a question in the chat. If you guys have any more questions in the chat, please let us know, because we're fixing to wind this up. Had a question here. Where is it? Beef tallow. Do you use it on your proteins, or is it a secret?
So anything that we cook that is beef has tallow naturally occurring as we render that fat. But we do make tallow now, and thanks to Chef Wade, who knows how to do all this stuff. So he renders. We have a ton of fat, and it's either going to go in the trash, or we're going to do something else with it.
Mm-hmm.
So we started experimenting with that. We don't do a whole lot with it yet, but sometimes we use it on the baked potatoes, and we tell people when we do that. But so the stuffed potatoes, instead of getting that clarified butter that we usually use, sometimes it's tallow. I think it makes them taste like steak, and I love it. And I think we should use it on everything. But I don't get to decide that on my own anymore.
Yeah.
So we do. I think soon you'll see us using tallow in more items and in more ways, just because we have so much of it and it's so good. I have a ton of it at home because I love cooking with it.
Mm. Do you guys smoke your tallow, or do you use it just rendered?
No, rendered and smoked.
Yeah, smoked is amazing.
Yeah.
Making some flour tortillas out of it or something, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So how many briskets were you cooking back in the day when you had your food truck?
5
a day?
5 briskets a day. That was all I could fit. It was a 250-gallon propane tank smoker.
And where is that smoker at now? You still have it?
So I have a guy that builds our pits here, and he basically he has a huge yard, so he has a lot of property, so he stores it at his house because I don't have anywhere to put it. Although I've been trying to convince Suzanne that we could just keep it in the backyard. She doesn't think it looks nice, but I'm trying to teach her that it does look nice.
Oh God, let me clean up my backyard and I'll invite you over so you can see how nice it looks. But right now, Rich, I have smokers everywhere, and I'm gonna get rid of some of the stuff because I've gotten out of hand.
That's what makes it look nice, I thought.
Yeah, you have the grass, the pool, and then you have my whole area that's just covered with smokers and stuff.
There you go.
That's awesome. Well, Rich, I do want to. We're at the hour and 5-minute mark, and I do want to again thank you for everything. Appreciate your being on the show and sharing a little bit about your business. As I mentioned earlier, I wish you nothing but the best and the success that the business can bring you, or the barbecue business can bring you. Hope to see. I can't wait to see your expansion project and what that's going to do for your business, and and I think you look decent in gray hair, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of gray hairs coming out.
It's coming out.
But thank you again for everything, Rich. We'll be talking to you guys in the chat. I appreciate you guys jumping on tonight and talking barbecue. I think it's something that we're all passionate about, including Rich, that's extremely passionate about barbecue, and his wife Suzanne kind of pushed him into the business. And that's funny to look back at our interview tonight and really figure out, okay, what pushed you into barbecue? And I think it's Suzanne that pushed you into barbecue, because you were going to cook steaks on a gas grill.
Yeah.
So, well, Rich, thanks again for everything, and everybody in the chat. You guys have a good night, and we will see you guys next Wednesday.
Thanks for having me, Joe. Bye, everybody.